Hello, team. I think there was an issue with the timing on this. I think it might have said 11:45 p.m. tomorrow night, but it's scheduled for tonight. Good evening, everyone. How are you? Welcome to the Sawalha-Adderleys. If you haven't, do subscribe. We have a very heavy emphasis, interest in the conflicts that are currently happening in Gaza and now have been spread by Israel towards Iran. Anglo-Arab family. We've been following it for the last 20 months in Gaza. And so we are also obviously picking up the expansionist aggression of Israel as they strike Iran, etc. So why are we going live tonight? So do subscribe, do share, do tell your friends, do hit the notification bell. It's just me and Nadia running the channel. We try to pick beneath, evening Reese, pick beneath the headlines, the mainstream sort of hum of white noise that seeks to numb us all or numb everyone into having just a very standard, simplistic, not analytical, and emotional and limited response to things. Our frustration with the coverage of Gaza, the coverage of the history of the plight of the Palestinians, and our frustration with this story of the Israel v. Iran conflict is the fact that the mainstream media forever and a day simply publishes the press releases issued out by, firstly, either Israel or then America. And tonight, I think it's a significant night tonight because I think there's a huge question mark. For most of today, there's been a feeling or a sense that perhaps America are going to get directly involved. Now, of course, when we say that, anything Israel does is essentially an extension of what American foreign policy is. By and large, Israel is the aircraft carrier for America in the Middle East. It's there. It's a satellite. It's an island. It's why, the Israeli army, the Israeli military, the military machine is entirely funded, constructed, supported, and defined by its sponsor, its parent, its indulgent parent, America. So we're at a crunch point because we've been going for 4 or 5 days. Israel has been hitting Tehran and various nuclear sites and military sites across Iran and in Tehran. Iran is firing on a daily basis ballistic missiles. The New York Times is reporting the idea that perhaps they're firing less in the last couple of days than they were right at the beginning. I don't think one can read too much into that. I think people would like to, I think in Israel, they would probably like to think they're running out of ballistic missiles. I don't think it works like that. But what's been particularly odd today was Donald Trump leaving the G7 summit dramatically early, saying he had to rush back to deal with something. Emmanuel Macron suggested it was because he wanted to broker a ceasefire. And then old Trump slapped Macron, a little bit like Macron's wife did on the airplane, and said, don't be so presumptuous. And essentially, Donald Trump has been in what they call the situation room for most of the evening here in the UK. I'm not too sure what time it is in Washington. 6 hours, is it? 6 hours later, earlier? So here's the thing. Is Trump going to take direct action against Iran? And the reason I think I wanted to do just a brief update with you guys is I think it's getting frighteningly close. You're absolutely right, Reese. Trump has declared that he has control of the skies. I'm just going to read through some of Donald Trump's posts today. He's asked for unconditional surrender. We know exactly where the so-called supreme leader is hiding. He is an easy target, but is safe there. We are not going to take him out, kill, at least not for now. But we don't want missiles shot at civilians or American soldiers. Our patience is wearing thin. thank you for your attention to this matter. Notice the way in which talk about completely clouding, just steaming up the clarity here, because it's like he is an easy target, but he's safe there. Okay, so he's visible, he's gettable, but he's going to be all right. We're not going to take him out, but I'm going to say the word kill and then say at least not for now. So this is a direct threat to the Ayatollah, to the supreme leader. I tell you what I felt when he wrote that. Donald Trump's really annoyed that he doesn't have a name like supreme leader. You can tell it's got under his skin. So-called supreme leader, because of course Donald Trump's the supreme leader in his own head. And this was the other earlier one. We now have complete, and in reference to what you said, Reese, we now have complete and total control of the skies over Iran. The fact that he used the royal we aligns yet again American foreign policy in the region with Israel. Here's the part of all of it that I find staggering, because I think we're going live now because we could easily wake up in the morning to the news that Donald okay, is it going to come up? Oh, hang on, I'm just trying to this. Have I frozen? Has it frozen? Am I all right? We could wake up to the news back. Great. Could wake up to the news that America have hit Iran's most sort of powerful or significant nuclear sites, and they'll have got down to the deepest one and the most significant one. Is it not Fora? But they need to use bunker bombs, and the only country that have got the bombs in that can kind of disable the kind of uranium nuclear enrichment is America. Now, America are flying troops out. The British have got RAF jets out there. We're all positioned. We're all poised. As Starmer said earlier today, this is a de-escalatory. It's very odd, isn't it? Would you de-escalate a fight at your local newsagents by turning up all of you with knives? I don't think so. So we have all of the West are basically in the region, in bases in Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Egypt, everywhere. And so Iran has put them on alert, saying, any of you attack us, we're going to attack all of your bases. But of course, all of this is quite elaborate. So will America, won't America? And the master, the Svengali, and I use that in a kind of compliment. It's a compliment. No, it's not a complimentary word, but it's it's complimentary for this guy. The Svengali, or the Iago from Othello, the Iago character in all of this is Netanyahu. He's managed to get the entire region to this compromised position. It's fascinating how he's managed to do it. And one has to marvel at his crass opportunism and horrific sort of, it's horrifically simplistic, his rhetoric and the stuff that comes out of Netanyahu's mouth, but he's got us there. He's got us to this point. Iran, the authorities in Iran have recommended everyone gets off WhatsApp. The Iranian authorities believe that social media sites are funneling and feeding information on people's whereabouts to the Israelis. Meta have made an actual announcement saying this is not the case, then saying they mustn't ban Meta at a point when people probably need us. So social media, even acknowledging the significance of their platforms. Reese Roberts says this feels like the Cuban Missile Crisis era. It's funny you should say that. I was talking to Maddie earlier tonight. We were talking about the severity of the situation. We were talking about the scale of it. We were talking about whether there's any precedent for this. And it does feel like the Cuban Missile Crisis. It does feel incredibly close, incredibly testy. The irony in all of this is, if I sat here now and you were to ask me, who do you think could possibly use a nuke? The only person or the only country or the only player in this that I would worry about using a sort of, what do they call it when it's a regional strike or a sort of geographically a limited nuclear strike, is Israel. Let's face it, America is the only country that has used nukes in World War II. And Israel is the only country in the Middle East that has nukes that it pretends it doesn't have. No, you're right, Michu. And that's what I was saying to Maddie. The Cuban Missile Crisis was much nearer. We were literally like on a button, whereas we're not on a button. The irony in all of this is that the least likely person or group, unless they've got something up their sleeves tonight that no one's aware of, is Iran. Here's two possible equations. America could go in with their bunker bombs, hit the half a mile under into a mountain kind of, uranium enrichment site in Iran and cause a stratospheric radioactive disaster done by America. Or Israel, who have already targeted and hit many of the nuclear sites across Iran, something which I've said many times, and I will keep repeating it because we need to be reminded of the contrasts and the contradictions, the double standards and the hypocrisies. When Russia hit the particularly vulnerable, is it Zaporozhye, the nuclear site in Ukraine, the whole world literally held its breath. The stock markets crashed. Everyone went into a total tailspin, quite rightly so. But it was all right. That's just in an ordinary day's mowing the lawn in another country for Israel. So the only two possible origin stories, I think, for nuclear conflict are either Israel using a tactical nuclear weapon in a sort of localized fashion, something that we've always been worried that Putin could use, or the Americans triggering a massive radioactive issue by using their bunker bombs. Now, the question here is, will Trump take that extra step towards actually stating and actually saying, this is our war, we're going to fight? What do you think, guys? I mean, he is tweeting absolute madness. Whilst you're considering this, I just want to show you this. This is a clip, allegedly. I don't know, I can't ratify this. I've seen this on Twitter. It's now being posted on Instagram. This is Ben Gvir, the guy with eyes on stalks who looks like he's going to have a heart attack because he's so full of hate for the Palestinians. You might have seen him on that. We did a recording about his trip to America where just pretty much everyone just screamed abuse at him because he's just so horrible. He's the footage of him caught in a street arguing and remonstrating with another Israeli politician. And by all accounts, here is the footage. What's being said by Ben Gvir is, why did you provoke Iran? And the other politician says, we didn't realize the power of Iran's missile capabilities. Now, it could be that, look, they're very angry. So panic has kicked in there. And so you've got that. Then you've got the idea that the Israeli authorities are refusing to let Israelis leave the country. Some have left by boat and gone to Cyprus. I think if you're an English national who happens to be Israeli, with dual nationality, I think you might be allowed to fly out back to the UK. But the vast majority of, if you're Israeli and you are seeking to leave Israel because of the conflict, the Israeli authorities will not let you. Now, let me just clarify. That means that what they're doing to the population is using them as human shields. I'm just, again, wanting to just throw out there the hypocrisy and the double standards. We've also witnessed military hospital wards and military kind of corridors and bunkers, if you like, beneath hospitals. We've also seen Israeli, Jewish Israeli sort of residents, say in Tel Aviv, they have access to shelters and, dugouts, but Palestinians and any other nationalities that are working for the Israelis don't. So again, another reminder of the apartheid that's at work there. These images here are the latest images this evening of Iran's missiles in the sky, hitting, some being intercepted in Tel Aviv. Quite a few landings. So you can see all of those up there. Iran launched another missile attack, Israel says. That's footage of that attack. Explosions also reported in Tehran and Karaj. This is a message by the Ayatollah. Help from Allah and an imminent conquest. The Islamic Republic will triumph over the Zionist regime by the will of God. That was a direct answer to this. We know exactly where the so-called supreme leader is hiding. If America gets involved, who believes? Christian Frizzell, you say, if America gets involved, I pray the UK stays out. We need to stop being the sidekick, or as I like to call us, the gimp of America. I agree, but I think we will be involved. Over 30,000 Israelis. Wow, Christos, thanks for that statistic. Over 30,000 Israelis have fled to Cyprus by sea, according to reports. That was Tel Aviv, Donna B. That was Tel Aviv. So let's have a little update on where we're at today, this evening. Could we be looking at who here thinks that Trump will essentially? I mean, what you have to bear in mind is the reason I'm hesitating is everything Israel's doing has been sanctioned by America, is tacitly supported by America. But at this point where we find ourselves, America hasn't quite said, right, we're joining in as a direct ally. Do you believe Trump will go for it? Because as I understand it, he's being met with he's meeting quite a bit of resistance in his government with MAGA, Make America Great, put America first, all that kind of stuff. Because, the Marjorie Taylor Greens and all that lot, the other extremists in his government, they're like, why are we going to fight another war abroad? We don't want another Iraq. We don't want another Afghanistan. So who of you, I'll read your comments in a moment. In the last 5 minutes, in the last 30 minutes, the IDF has said that for the second time in less than an hour, families across Israel are running for shelter as sirens sound due to another missile. So the missiles are coming thick and fast. Israel's IDF has issued a warning via a social media post on X, urging residents in Tehran to evacuate before planned military strikes. I've just read to you Iran's supreme leader, Ali Khamenei, his message on X. As I said earlier, Donald Trump posted on Truth Social that the US knows where the Ayatollah is. Like you, YouTube, I'm not entirely certain that they do. Bernie Sanders in the US said the president must not take illegal military action against Iran. Following a situation room briefing with members of his national security team, Trump is currently evaluating whether to lend his support to Israel by targeting Iranian nuclear facilities. Now, it's Iran's Fordow nuclear facility is the one that's located in the mountain. In a lengthy post on social media, Vice President J.D. Vance has responded to concerns from longtime members of Donald Trump's far-right Make America Great coalition. He met with Republican senators at a private lunch and said that Trump remains committed to Iran not having a nuclear capability and would rather negotiate than drop bombs. That's the most encouraging statement that suggests that he might not be dropping bombs. But the problem is no one knows with Trump, do we? If he feels he hasn't got enough headlines going his way, he could just press the button. So what do we think? Bombing instructions on X. Oh Lord, the end must really be near, says Persephone personified. What do you mean in terms of, oh my God, is that the mode of communication? Reese Roberts, well, it's tricky with Trump because he'll often listen to reason if it benefits his popularity and as a popular sentiment amongst the public. However, he has that hard-nosed New York mentality. Exactly. Sometimes I do genuinely think he's a little bit ADHD and he just goes for the contrary decision because he has to just be different. He just wants to be different. This is a US war and Israel is the proxy. I agree. We've said it all along. This is a US war. Or again, I mean, it's a curious one, isn't it? I know some people like to think of Israel as the 52nd state, 51st state. Others like I don't know. I just see it as an extension of America, if I'm honest. When I hear Israelis, I often think Americans. Netanyahu, He grew up in New Jersey, didn't he? But what do we think? Taxpayer, presumably we also know where Trump is. that's true. But they can't reach, the missiles can't reach her. I don't think Trump will do anything. He will entice someone else, Donna Little. Well, here's the thing. That clip I just showed you of Ben Gvir, here's my theory on it. See if you agree. This is what I think's the situation. I think Israel will never admit that they've bitten off more than they can chew. I think Israel may have hit a bit of a limit in terms of what they can do to Iran. And Iran hasn't quite hit the limit of what it can do to Israel. I think Israel have also hit the limit of what the Iron Dome and its self-protection can do to protect its citizens. And I think they now need America to be brought into this. We talked at great length this morning about the possibility, the fear that I've got that a false flag of some form could be used to trigger America's involvement. I think Israel have quite literally bitten off more than they can chew. And it's not that they couldn't, over a long period of time, perhaps grind down Iran with American support, but I don't think they've got many other choices up their sleeves. So when you say, I don't know who it was who said it, you know, I think America will get someone else to do their dirty work. Well, you never know. Could we be looking, here's another possible narrative. Could we be looking at the moment that Donald Trump dropped the trade deal that he signed with our Keir Starmer? Could we be looking at the true exploitation of the UK GIMP? Could it be that when push comes to shove and we get to the crunch moment, Trump turns to the latex-clad GIMP that is Starmer, who turns his head with a squeak of his neck, and he goes, "Oh, you want Trump?" And Trump says, "I'd like you to go in there and just oil him up and just do the job." I've just got a feeling we might be the fall guy. I know people are saying we might not get him. What about if we're the fall guy? What about if he puts that call in and says to Starmer, "Would you mind just picking this one up for me?" It's just a thought. It's just a thought. So these are some of the other updates. Turkish President Erdogan and French President Macron reacted to the unfolding conflict in a phone call. Erdogan called, I mean, obviously Erdogan has his issues massively as a leader, but when it comes to Benjamin Netanyahu, Erdogan does not like him. And quite rightly so, no one does. Erdogan describes Benjamin Netanyahu as the greatest threat to the region's security. Macron cautioned that the biggest error would be to use military strikes to change the regime because it would then be chaos. I think Macron needs to shut up a little bit because I think he's really annoyed Donald Trump. I mean, Donald Trump really has kind of had his fill of the Macron. So, you know, what am I trying to say? At the end of the day, it's anyone's guess. It's literally down to Trump. Which way will he roll the dice? He's got in, you know, the positives in terms of him not chipping in and taking America to war. Because let's not beat around the bush. Lots of Americans follow the channel. This would be you going to war again. And as soon as you go to war, if you engage your troops, your jets, your bombers, Iran have said quite clearly that they will target American bases, and then we're back into an Iraq situation, and that is the Rubicon. That once that's crossed, I had a Rubicon earlier. It was nice. Once that's crossed, there's no going back. And so there are enough people in Trump's circle who don't want that. So let's just keep our fingers crossed that they hold. But that doesn't mean it's all game over. If America decides, okay, you know what, we're not going to go in and we're not going to bomb, what will Netanyahu try to do next? This is where we're at right now, is Benjamin Netanyahu trying to get America involved in the safest, most obvious fashion possible, without having to conduct a false flag, without having to do some other weird manipulative shit around the corner. So, you know, let's keep our fingers crossed that we don't wake up to, yeah, they've bunker bombed the nuke sites everywhere, because we know we're in for a pretty horrendous, colorful moment. I don't think Iran will just be turned off like that. I don't think any amount of American attacking will necessarily neuter Iran immediately. I mean, obviously, it will do damage. Obviously, the regime will be under pressure. So we're at very much a crossroads. I think Trump is standing like Caesar, though I don't want to give him this metaphor. He is standing at the edge of the Rubicon. And does he cross or does he not? Let me ask you all, just finally, as we head off to the wooden hills to Bedfordshire, who thinks he will cross the Rubicon? Meaning, who thinks Trump will attack? Who thinks Trump will take America into another Middle Eastern war? Who thinks he will? Tiber, Nakvi, Mark, if Trump gets involved, then you're looking at a world ahead, as the Middle East won't sit back and let this happen. Okay, yeah, no, I think you're saying a world war ahead. Christos, Trump's view on the matter will be primarily from a beneficial, transactional point of view for him and the extended circle. It will be a matter of profit and loss. Charlene says, yes, he will. Donna B, I do. Patman 67, there's 100 million people in Iran. They might not all support their regime, but and that's a really important point, Patman. It's interesting hearing the propaganda machine of exiled Iranians. Obviously there's a lot of people who don't live in Iran because they don't like the system. They feel, they were persecuted, etc. But so many of them are already being hijacked and taken hostage almost by the Zionist project. Now, this isn't to say that Iran doesn't have its issues. Of course it does. Every country does and every regime does. But it's not Israel's place to go in there and start changing it all about, just like it wouldn't be anyone else's place to go into Israel and do the same. So you can't become the self-anointed police officer of the Middle East, especially when you do the policing in the Middle East, you commit genocides. You know what I mean? I mean, everyone seems to be forgetting. Benjamin Netanyahu is using this as a PR stunt to make him look like a sort of dignified leader trying to fight an evil regime. He's murdered tens of thousands of children. He's like the child catcher in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang times gazillion. He's the most evil specimen of nastiness on the planet. Every child should be read stories about Benjamin Netanyahu, like the Ladybird book about Rumpelstiltskin. He should be the subject and the monster baked into fairy tales and nightmares for generations to come. That's what he is. That's what he is. Jordan, you feel sadly he will. Yes, he will. Blackfeather still. He will, as they are already sending military. Yeah, that's the worry. Do you send all that military hardware over there? I don't. Okay, MeTube, at best, cruise missiles supporting Israeli offensive. But if they send cruise missiles, MeTube, Iran will hit them. Or do you think that might be a diluted enough support that even Iran go, well, we can sidestep engaging with America? I don't know if he will, Ninja K. He has friends in the Middle East now. He'll want more camels and jeweled gifts. Don't get me going on the Gulf states. They can find 3 trillion for America, but they can't send fucking water to Palestine. Pacman 67, Israel is running out of time and weapons. I fear Trump will bail them out. Well, they are. I think you're absolutely right, Pacman. I think Israel, we don't know the extent to which Israel is relatively speaking, on its knees and feeling vulnerable. I think they're feeling more vulnerable than they're wanting us to know. They've started 5-6 wars on 6 fronts, so it's hardly surprising. Anyway, we will see you in the morning for Coffee Moaning. Tomorrow, Coffee Moaning will be for our regulars. Do subscribe if you haven't. Hit the notification bell. Hit all if you like all our content. A vlog will be landing tomorrow. We do all sorts of content on the channel. But Coffee Moaning tomorrow will be a good old-fashioned Coffee Moaning where we're going to focus on non-stories not to do with this, unless America's gone to war. If that happens overnight, I'm afraid we will be doing that. I'm afraid your characterization of Netanyahu applies to Israel's in large part. Well, you know what, taxpayer, I've read more and more and heard more and more that really we don't have just a Netanyahu problem in Israel. We have an Israel problem in Israel. We really do. So it's going to be a more, if there isn't war, if America hasn't dropped the big bombs and gone barking mad and Trump hasn't truth socialed the fuck out of it, And if he still hasn't got over the fact that someone else on the planet is called the Supreme Leader, and he's bombed Iran, then we will be doing that in Coffee Moaning. If not, if we're sort of at a similar sort of place, then we're going to do a sort of older-fashioned Coffee Moaning where we look at other topics, and we will do a separate Middle East upload afterwards. Okay, guys, stay safe, keep your ear to the ground, and let us know if you hear anything before we do. All right, guys, sleep tight.